All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I am your host, Jake Thomas, and today's guest is known as KetoFiveO. So KetoFiveO, standing for 50,
Uh-oh.
50. I'll let him tell you about why, but he is now a licensed primary sports nutritionist and personal trainer and has found success in a ketogenic and carnivore lifestyle over the past few years. He's a retired police officer, also a legacy police officer as it runs in his family. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that too. But he is someone who understands from firsthand experience the damage that a career can cause. He knows about weight gain, high cortisol levels, stress, alcohol, PTSD, heart disease, and many other issues. And he would like to share with you all some things he's learned and the things that he's still learning throughout what he's now on his 4th year of his keto carnivore journey, and has gotten healthy, reduced his own weight by 50 pounds in 10 months on a ketogenic diet, and down now another 20 pounds on a carnivore diet. A friend that I just met and made recently at KetoCon's Hack Your Health event in Austin, Mr. Eric Reynolds. Glad to have you on the show, Eric.
Thanks, Jake, for having me, man. I've never seen you walk around Austin. I'm like, man, that guy's somebody. I gotta meet that guy. And then I finally found you. I'm like, man, how come I haven't met this guy? I've been following. You miss so many of us warriors out there along the way. And I feel bad when someone asks me, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, oh, man, right now, I'll try to follow him and jump on the bandwagon because it's tough sometimes to get everybody that's on this train that we're on.
Totally. And you were posted up with the RV, and then before I knew it, like I was getting you and I talked for, I felt like it was an hour, that first
Yeah.
conversation, and hear about what you were doing and the cool story about your mother and the family ties that you had with, in the line of duty, and who you'd found throughout life and time, and just so much that was going on, man. I was like, God, this dude's got stories, like
I
in the
know.
coolest way.
Yeah, it's been something else since, I mean, I'm not saying it was all the ketogenic way of eating, but, when I started really addressing some of my issues, not only from the nutrition side, but the therapy side for PTSD and, a lot of my own depression and insecurities were going on at the time, maybe I hadn't addressed or even really knew about. So once all that started coming together and you start getting a little more focused and you start losing weight, feeling better, your priorities change. Like I would still be on duty right now, finishing up my last year if I stayed on for the extra retirement that a lot of guys hang
Mm,
on to. And I think that would have cost me a lot on my health. And, I would have been another statistic that would have retired soon after retirement, like a lot of us first
wow.
responders and military, all of us.
Yeah, man. Well, tell us about that then, Eric. Like what put you on such a mission? Obviously, you're a career policeman. You came from a legacy of police officers also. It's in your blood, it's in your bones. Like somebody that is probably looking to do it for life, and like you said, would have likely stayed on for the rest of that for further retirement. What takes you out of that? What something significant, severe had to happen? Either experientially,
Yeah.
or that you said, "Hey, something needs to change, and I need to go into this other thing," which you're doing now, which is clearly you're doing as vested as before, as committed, as dedicated, and with that much conviction because it's all over you.
Yeah.
It's infectious to see. So, like, what got you there?
Well, I mean, I guess the big moment was getting shot in 2012 by that bank robber. Because that was the moment where it was your day. I was I played a lot of sports, and I was trying to people understand it was almost like hitting a game-winning shot, making a game-winning touchdown in the championship game or something. It was like that moment showed up that day, and I never realized what that toll of it, what would take, over time, the stress of it, the reliving it, the waiting for the state attorney's office to clear you in a shooting. And then when your name's out there in the public, and then you get honored, you get to go to Washington, D.C., which is an honor, but then you see all the officers that lost their lives. And then you start thinking about survivor's guilt. Why was it me? And why do I feel like this? So it just kind of started, I got a lot more introverted. The hypervigilance was just out of control. I didn't know what to do. I had taken a desk job after my incident and was kind of riding that out for a while. And then new chief comes in and was like, why do we got a cop in evidence? And I'm like, well, the last evidence people had in here were stealing the evidence. So that's why you brought a cop in here. I mean, it wasn't like that we just wanted to be in here. So I was thinking I was going back out to the road, starting to get a lot of stressed out again because I knew I was going to shoot somebody again. I was just going to be either I'm going to see it too fast, or I'm going to anticipate something that maybe is not there. And that was my fear. So I ended up going, since I had an open, being shot in the foot, I still had physical therapy I was going through, kept my workers' comp case claim open because of the foot injury, and every year getting, rechecks and all this. I was able to file a workers' comp claim based on the PTSD side of stuff. And I still had to go before a board of PTS worker comp lawyers and maybe break down in front of a whole room full of them to make sure that I needed this, right? And then I ended up getting an independent psychologist, which finally approved me to go see the guy I wanted to see, who was familiar with first responders, anybody seen any type of combat, in the military. He just knew. And when I walked in that office, first thing he said was, Eric, you got to learn how to dance with this. It's an attack on your central nervous system and stuff like that. So I was like, wow, that's the first time anyone actually told me that.
Yeah.
Because he goes, you just got to learn how to dance with it, man. And, he brought in meditation. He wasn't big on the nutrition side, because a lot of the doctors aren't, unfortunately, whether they're, a psychologist or whatever. And that was the moment when I really started to at least look at myself. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I getting so much weight gain? And that's even before the heart disease stuff. So that was pretty much the beginning.
Wow. Were you coping? Like, could you tell that you were coping somehow with food, like to where you gained weight? Was it strictly from overeating, or was it just being kind of sedentary, recovering, like you said, with the foot injury? Were you able to retrace like some of those steps of like what got you there?
Yeah, I was boozing a little more, playing. I remember playing Assassin's Creed. I went through like all the different video games, just doing some brutal stuff. Probably not great therapy for the brain, but it was just, constantly just. I didn't understand nutrition before, though, man. I'd been working out. I played football. I always tried to bulk up. I was always like a lineman type, 225, too big to freaking be anywhere else. I was just kind of a misfit, play defensive line in high school on a really good defense. And I just got slung around. They had me shooting gaps and just banging me around all the time. But I just thought, hey, I got to bulk up. And I ate the wrong foods, carbohydrates, right? That's what they told us. And by the time I graduated college, I was probably 30 pounds overweight. Didn't realize it. Thought it was all right. And then after years of being a cop, around 220, 225 roughly, after the shooting, I got up as high as 250. And I had a buddy of mine, another officer, die of a heart attack. And he was in great shape, a canine guy. He was in the Army Reserves after being in the Army. So, I mean, he was just a badass. And he went down after having stents put in about 3 years prior. So I started looking into the stent stuff, and my heart health. That guy dies, that shit can happen to me,
Sure.
So then you just start and I didn't know how to lose the weight. I kept working out, everything they say, you got to cut back on the alcohol. I didn't know anything about intermittent fasting. I didn't know anything about switching stuff around until I was playing basketball one day with a guy who lost 50 pounds. Typical story you hear, man, what'd you do? And he said keto, and I thought it was some horrible cross training, something that I wasn't going to like, right? It was going to suck. And I just started reading up on it, and it kind of made sense. And I just said, all right, let me try some of this meal planning and shorten my window, like eat between 9 and 5 or whatever. And then that kind of took off, lost 20 pounds pretty fast. And then it was like 2 pounds pretty much every 2 weeks, just right on. I had my little app, I think I used Carb Counter or whatever it was. And I had my macros all adjusted, and I kind of stuck to it, And the whole time I was very heavy ketovore. I was always a lot of meat in there. It just seemed right, and that's when I ended up transferring over, just to go on more carnivore than anything. And I saw a lot more. Plus I retired at the same time. So when you get rid of the stress and do carnivore, it's amazing results that'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So it sounds like you kind of got, in an odd way, like it was a gift of the situation happening. Hard to look at it at the time, but like you said, learning to dance with it. Like, well, I'm sure you're a pretty good dancer now.
With that,
Yeah.
not like you though. Nah, I've had to, my wife, she's of course been the foundation of everything. And she was kind of already going through some stuff with her parents' health. She was from New York, and her parents were up there during 9/11. They were part of the cleanup stuff, not first responders, but helping businesses clean, and
Mm.
part of like being a super for a building. And anyways, they got exposed and got really sick and got introduced to the medical business. So she's kind of been open to that life. So she was on my side and all this. She understood I needed help. I look back, I didn't think I was that bad, dude. You know, and now I talk to my wife and kids, and you hear how they had to tiptoe around, to make sure, oh, let's not make dad upset. And, I don't like hearing that, It's like you don't want to be that kind of a burden, especially when you don't know it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going to press on that one then.
hmm
For our fellow brethren and sisters in arms still serving, or those that have, and they are tiptoeing around, or they know their families are tiptoeing around, and their wives and their kids, like, what do you tell them?
well, don't tell them at that moment. you know, um, you got to find a time and place, and not that there's a perfect time. Eventually, it's got to come out. Um, I was getting talked to about. We had some. Whew, you did hit it. Give me a second. My thing was the booze, and as a cop, it was pretty much the only thing you could ever do. I can't go smoke a joint. If you're popping pills, you crash your car, they piss test you, you're jammed up for not reporting you're taking pills. It's this whole merry-go-round circle of shit. So you turn to the thing that everyone else is doing in our culture, right? You drink, you know, and then it becomes a crutch, becomes a thing that you're looking forward to do, and just to calm yourself down, the central nervous system, and you're able to cope with it. And of course, along that comes bad decisions for a lot of us, whether it's gambling or eating or, adultery or, just bad stuff, wrecking your car. I mean, the stories I got of my cop buddies are just bad decisions that we made, and we're held to this high standard, you know, and we let it slip, and it's just, a plumber doesn't get put on the news for a DUI, but a cop will in a heartbeat,
Mm.
and we got to understand that going out there, and we got to do a better job. And I think the coping is huge. I don't think guys know what to do. They can lift, they can do roids and shit like that and get all freaking massive. That's not going to help what's going on with them over the long period of their career, So I would say you got to get them into talking to somebody, whether it's like a cops and campers event like I run, when they get there and they just talking to other guys that have gone through it. It's not an AA meeting, but it's similar to where you feel safe, and you start hearing guys talking, you're like, oh, I want to do the same thing, and then it becomes, all right, I'm not alone, I'm not the first guy or the last to go through this, and they've got to figure it out on their own eventually. I mean, you might just get in the way, but it's going to come down to them, and that's what eventually happened. My wife finally, I had a son going through some medical stuff, and she was asking me, are you going to be ready if we have to go? And you're fucking, buzzed because you're watching football or something. I was like, well, it won't happen on Sunday, right? I mean, so that had me thinking, and then I started, 1 week at a time, and I got off the booze, and that was just like 9 months ago. I wasn't like putting a lot of it away the last 4 years, even on keto, but it was a bridge to get me, I was still dealing with a lot of other issues, and then the heart disease diagnosis in 2019, I was still like, all right, well, I can drink a little bit, right? A little
Yeah,
bit's
yeah,
good for
yeah,
you.
yeah,
That's what they say, right? And
yeah.
then I started diving into it more and realizing how toxic and poison it is. And, and then I scored real high on my toxin tests and my heavy metals tests. And I
Nice.
got one of the motherfucker genes. So it's like even the way I absorb and, you know, how I detox is affected. So I've been trying to work on that stuff, getting the mercury teeth, fillings taken out. I'm good on that end. Just, we didn't discuss it, but my CAC score is really out of this world. It's really, it's over 4,000, even after
Mm.
it started off as 1,500 and got over 4,000 doing the keto carnivore way. And they were like, Dr. Ovadia, my doctor's like, hey, we get what's causing it? Why is it increasing? It may have been that way that first year when I dove into heavy carnivore. I may have healed up that way and just been the same the last couple of years, because we don't have, every year. of a test. It's over a 5 year span. So we're going to redo that this January. At least we'll have a comparison over a year with the detox, and hopefully that'll get some of the other things straight. But yeah, I'm sorry. Back in 2019, and after they did the whole high cholesterol, that's when they sent me for the first CAC score, 1500. You got heart disease. You need stents. This is the worst news of your life. You're gonna die. That's pretty much the phone call I got from my primary. Got to see my guy, my cardio. Oh, he'll take care of you. He's good on the cops. What is he? He knows we got insurance. That's how he's good with the cops. I'm sure he's going to turn me away like they all do, right? So I ended up going in and talking to him, and I'd already at that point discovered, some of the stuff about statins. I'd watched Dr. David Diamond's, presentation. Already been kind of on the Ken Berry bandwagon at that point, way back in 2019, that it's all right to have high cholesterol, all this other information.
Sure.
I went into it armed with that cardiologist, and man, their business, man, they'll swindle you if you don't know a little bit, because he tried to have me, going to the next step, and I just ended up walking. I go, man, I'm already down 30 something pounds, and you're telling me I had to do this, but this, is that typical, they don't get it, or they're not trained in it, not his fault. It's just the way the system's set up. So yeah, I just went off there a little bit of a rant.
No, it's good, man. I appreciate your vulnerability greatly. I know it's a sensitive area to say the least, but I know that, years ago, I sat in a seminar with a psychologist, and she was talking about, it was on PTSD and trauma recovery. She was talking about how PTSD, right off the bat, she's like, let me say this very clearly. PTSD is not a disease. And I was like, oh boy, this is about to get good. Taking a bold step right here with this crowd. And she's like, basically saying, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just trying to express something that you don't know how to express. Something is coming out of you that's embedded, that's burned into your, consciousness or subconscious in the form of memory and trauma, and it's trying to come out. And you just don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to express it. It needs to be released. It needs to be purged, but you don't know how to do that. And I was like, that's a really cool way to say that. And then thinking back and looking at my own life, and I'm sure many people can relate to it in one form or another, whether it's emotional trauma, physical, psychological, any type of trauma. For most people, when they try to recount it, it's difficult. It brings you right back to that place. You get, clamminess of the skin. You maybe even get a little pale, a little faint. You're sweaty. Like you can smell the smells. It's a very visceral experience to relive.
Yeah.
But doing that is the purge. Doing that is the cleansing. Does that make it a disease? I don't think so. I very much agree with what she's saying in the sense that it's just, we don't know how to handle it. We don't know. We got these feelings going on. It's like, just let them out. Like, so I'm going to yell them out with a scream, or I'm going to let them out with a scream. Or I'm going to let them out with rage. Or I'm going to let them out with anger. And a lot of that comes from confusion. And she just went on and on and on about this. And I was like, God, that's really cool. Would you say similarly to any of that? Or do you disagree? Or how do you feel any connectedness with that?
I remember it was exhausting, the hypervigilance all the time. Just always got to stay one step ahead, right? Even in sports, you're trying to anticipate, and it goes into, your private world, and man, thank God for Dr. Barnett, man, because, being able to talk to him and, like you said, purge it. And then I saw some additional therapy. Dr. Diamond actually got me in touch with Dr. Diego Hernandez that does art therapy, and I was able to do some stuff with the frontal lobe. And dude, I had so much trauma from my childhood. I mean, trust me, I didn't go to any private schools like that and had any of that trauma, but it was just, my parents have had 8 marriages, right? And it was the moving around and the fighting in schools, because, you're a young kid. For me in the early 80s, overlapping, 70, 80s kid, you fought in school. You got paddled in school. How crazy is that? I got paddled and by a dude and it wasn't a fraternity. And so it was just a whole different time, and then, I guess my mom being a cop, right, for 30 years, her boyfriends were cops. One of them was like Dirty Harry. He scared the heck out of me, but I learned a lot from him, you learn from guys like that. And, I didn't realize some of her trauma that she suffered was passed down to me, the struggles that she went through and stuff like that. So I didn't realize it till, getting older, even to this day. I see my
Sure.
mom, how she is now at 74. I mean, what she had to go through, and some of those, in case you don't know, she was a homicide sergeant in Miami for pretty much most of my life, hostage negotiator. I mean, she saw tragedy after tragedy, and
Can we tell them who your mom was?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do I just say Detective June Hawkins from Griselda, the
Yeah.
Netflix show? Yeah.
When you told me that, I was like, no freaking way, dude.
What a weird thing to tell people, dude, because we're just regular. I mean, we're not regular because we're cops. We're already a little different because we're those type of people. But, you know, for her to even be on that show, and when I got that call from Doug Myra of the Narcos whole series, he called me at my old job. And I thought they wanted me. They're like, "Hey, you ever seen the Narcos series? We're thinking about doing one in Miami." I'm like, "Ah, I'm from Miami," and that's when I just found my brother, the cop brother. We had
Yeah.
just been on Fox News, on Fox and the Friends in the morning, interviewing us with our nice suits on, our uniforms, Class A's, and I thought, somehow we're getting into a Narcos series. I don't even know. It doesn't even work with them, right? And like, "Well, I'll talk to your mom." I was like, my mom again. Her, okay, again. So no, it was great because my stepfather was also part of that whole thing. They've been married 30 years now, but at the time, back in 1980, they both worked in the same unit. They were just with different people or single at the time, depending on what was going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was only 10, like 8, 9 when she was going through all that. And she saw some horrible stuff. I mean, let alone the sexism and the chauvinistic side of just in your own, at your own department.
Sure.
But to go out there on the road and see families executed, I mean, that can't be normal for a 28-year-old anybody
I'd
to
say
see
so.
stuff
Yeah.
like that, right? And then she comes home and plays mom. Yeah, all right, we got to take you to soccer practice. Sometimes there'd be a
Yeah.
police car take me to football practice. That was kind of cool, though. You know,
Yeah.
I wasn't in handcuffs or anything, but they dropped me off. They're like, "Hey, you got a police car coming in?" I go, "Yeah, my mom got stuck on some call. It's usually some tragedy or something." So yeah, she definitely went through some stuff, and I think her having to be the breadwinner and just that she had to be a force in nature to me,
Yeah.
and she couldn't coddle me as much as she probably would have if she grew up in a different way. I mean, she was an arts scholarship. She had an art scholarship to Florida State back in 1968, and then my dad was in the Air Force, and they hooked up. And back then, when you knocked somebody up, you didn't have a lot of options, so they went and got married, and she dropped out. So I ended up finishing though. I went back to Florida State, got the degree. She never did, but yeah. But anyways, it was just she had it rough, and I think that some of that trauma passed on to me because I felt what she was going through as a kid.
Mm.
And I see that with my own kids. I think they felt some of the stuff I was going through, and I never realized how much they can, especially if they're really connected with you. You know.
How did that come out for you? Like when you started to realize that, like, was it through some type of like within the art therapy, like you kind of talked about, where you just be, you know, as you're expressing your creativity, these memories would come up, or you would get like flashbacks, or like how did that come out?
Man, my oldest, he's 12 now. He's a great kid. He's just a little warrior, like ninja warrior type, like shooting guns. Typical, I've actually trained him to be like both of my boys to be like super cops, even though I don't want them to be cops. But you still got to have muzzle discipline and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you know, but but he shot me in the face once with a Nerf gun. Right? He just came in. I got him Nerf guns, whatever. But he shot me in the face, and the rage I had, I smashed the Nerf gun, and you're like,
Mm,
man, that's probably not the reaction I probably should have had. And looking back, you see a lot of those reactions. And, my second son was born early. Um, he was born the same day we closed on both houses that we were trying to move into one. He's born the same day. That's him. He's a little chaos, and
lot going on. Yeah.
yeah, and I know he's felt it because he was born after everything that had happened. But as we started in 2018, we pulled my oldest out of school. We just didn't like the direction of school was going with him having to be sitting in a desk all day when he wants to run around and then he can learn. It was just I wasn't a homeschool kid, but we went to a meeting and I started talking to kids and the parents and understanding what it's really about, and we pulled him out, and it turned out to be the best decision, because a year and a half later, we're on the road in an RV camper, and COVID hits, and we don't even know that it's going on. The places we went, you didn't even know COVID was going on. My kids were never traumatized with that. They saw the stuff on the news, and obviously they weren't totally shielded from it, but they didn't have to go through what so many other kids had to go through during that time, and we were very fortunate. It's just everything was guiding us, finding the brother, losing the weight, and started to help cops. That's how the whole KetoFiveO started at my department. You start losing weight, people are like, hey, man, you got to go talk to KetoFiveO and evidence, and I just started helping other cops, man, and, it was funny. And a group started, and then, I just kind of ran with it, and I'm still helping as many cops as I can. I get a lot of questions, you know how it is. Nobody really sees what you're doing behind the scenes, but, we're all freaking busy and trying to help people. And, it's been the passion, and then we get to New York and they tell me to take down my thin blue line flag. And then that started the whole cops and campers endeavor, man. It was like, I can't stay away from it, man. I'm just trying to camp and retire, man. I already got shot already. It's like, geez, give me a chance.
It's amazing how many people, through their own self-discovery, improvement, personal growth, development, all the, the good buzzwords, but self-discovery, the inevitability of wanting to give that away, wanting to share that, wanting to express that with other people, wanting other people to have what they have in the form of those feelings. Did you feel the desire or the push to do that on your own, or was it from other people kind of asking you and kind of helping you out of the plane, so to speak?
Yeah, when I was in evidence, I spent the last 7 years after the shooting, pretty much last 7 years in evidence. So I was always at the window checking packages out. So, you're seeing everybody, and they start asking you questions, and they come up drinking a Dr. Pepper. I'm like, dude, you know how bad that shit is, and then, you talk real with them. I mean, we're dealing with dead bodies and making life and death decisions out there. So I have no problem calling them out. Right. And it would just, people would hide it when they walk by, they're like, oh, don't let KetoFiveO get you. I go, don't let me come to your house with a search warrant. That's what I want to do. I want to do some friend-like food search warrants on people's houses. I know they got Kellogg's in there. So I think that'd be a great video with my kids or something dressed up.
Open up or we'll break it down.
Yeah, imagine. And they don't go after anything except the bad goods in the cabinet or the pantry.
That's great. So, That's funny.
Yeah, and then, like you said, you start, one of my buddies lost 50 pounds, and he was a big one. And I got him the pizza crust, whatever, outer aisles, whatever, I could, other choices I could give them that were better. Cauliflower pizza crust rather than the regular wheat bullshit crust or whatever, and you want some chocolate, let's try to get you some almond butter stuff. And, just try to get them off of, and, obviously the fasting. And, I got in good with some of the records ladies, and, they were seeing some success, and, they start talking. Nice. And next thing you know, it was like, hey, got to talk to Eric, and I was like, wow, this is cool. I never thought about doing anything with it. I just thought I'm a coach, and then I watched Fat Fiction, and then there's this guy named Doug Reynolds, and I hit him up on Low Carb USA. I just signed up, I want to be part of this. Is the first team I was going to join. Like I wasn't, this is all new to me, the magic pill. And then, reading Nina Teichel's book, Big Fat Surprise. So all this stuff was rolling, and then Saladino's book and everything was like, wow. And I was like, I'm going to join this, Low Carb USA, see what this is about, and then I ended up having some billing issues. I was actually talking with Doug. I was like, oh my God, I'm talking with the guy I just saw in the movie, and running, small business, he's trying to run things, and I'm able to talk to him. And he invited me on his podcast. And I was like, podcast talking about health and stuff? Like I'd done a couple of police ones talking about the shooting, and I can get into that character, but this other side was still new. And I said, okay. And it was episode 50. Ironic, right? KetoFiveO gets says. I remember that. I go, did you plan out? He's like, no. I was like, wow, I was supposed to be here then. And then he goes, hey, why don't you go to this school and you can get some of your nutrition stuff behind you, and the personal training and the fitness evaluator and the health advocate, and also resistance training, which is the way I've been rolling, dude, for the last 3-4 years on the road. Man, I love the resistance training. I can't tell you how good it feels on my joints. because when I was heavy, I lifted heavy, right? And it
Mm,
was the way, lifting 315 because I weighed 245. I got to do that,
sure,
right? Now I
sure.
can do 225 at 175, and I'm like, man, I feel just as strong. Even though I
Oh
could do
yeah,
more, I'm not going to hurt myself anymore. I don't need to lift.
right,
I'm 54 years old. I don't need to be
right.
lifting that kind of weight and hurting myself when I just got myself. I mean, dude, I've never been this weight since I was like freaking
In high
13,
school, yeah,
something like that, dude. To be this size, man, and that's when it empowered me to tell these other guys that are still on patrol. I go, dude, if you could lose freaking from a 42 to just a 38, you're gonna feel it on your duty belt, getting
yeah,
in out of your car,
yeah.
and this is
Oh,
even without
jumping
just,
over fences, running anybody down, God forbid. Like,
man, I would have been lead star in SWAT, because I was like, man, I don't know
yeah,
if I could do all that stuff. The SWAT, we had a pretty good SWAT team, so you
yeah,
had to be pretty good. And I was like, I already knew I wasn't going to do one. Something was going to stop me, probably
sure.
myself at the time, and it was my weight, and everything just happened, dude. When you start helping people, and then I read more and more on it, and then COVID hit that summer, and I understood metabolic disease and the way it goes into the immune system. And here they are, like, just telling us the wrong stuff. Taco Bell's open. You can't go to the beach. You can't play hoops, but you can certainly go, buy booze. And,
Yep.
like I was saying, it was very disappointing. And I was already on to organized crime. I just didn't know it was really on the level of, the FDA and the American Heart Association on that level. I didn't know how crooked that stuff was.
Yeah, that's a that's a good way to tail on that. I mean, that's the truth, sadly. But yeah, I feel like it's one of those inevitable things that when you find what you have found in the form of fulfillment, happiness, peace, opulence, vitality, things like that, it's like the essence of each of those. It can't be selfish. They're based in kind of selflessness and joy and sharing, with other people. To be able to say, like, I can't just hog all this to myself. Like, I gotta share this with my friends and my family or anybody that asks me. I mean, I don't need to necessarily walk around like a preacher and say, come to the light, come to the Lord. But if you ask me, like, I'll talk your ear off about it. So like there you are in the evidence room. And for anybody that doesn't know, like, typically not the most pedestrianly trafficked area in the department, right? If anything, it's like it's down there on the lower floor. You got to traverse through some hallways to get there. It's got to be kept a little safeguarded. It's usually close to the armory, but it's not really a high trafficked area. And if anything, it's a place where maybe somebody gets put because they weren't the best behaved or they can't be trusted or they're not responsible. But there you are being like this Yoda down there, and I'm sure there was like a lot more traffic in the evidence. Like, what's everybody going on to evidence for? What all of a sudden evidence is the place to be? Like, the irony of that, I think, is hysterical. Here you
Yeah.
are offering it, not even to call it advice, but just, hey man, I'm just feeling good and trying to share it with the people, like your own little like gospel, and of all places, evidence.
Yeah, it could have been a TV show. That
Yeah.
could be the whole TV show, the evidence window, because we were actually in between Road Patrol and our detective bureau. So everybody that was doing anything really, I mean, you have your
Oh,
guys that
had to
work there,
pass through there.
they usually had to walk by. And in Boynton Beach down in South Florida, I mean, this is part of West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. It's all part of this whole tri-county area that's we got everything. So we're always having drugs or, murders and stuff. So there's always stuff coming in. So yeah, I would sit there and just be preaching to them. And, I'm like, you know what killed your guy? All these freaking prescription drugs, and telling them
Oh,
about
you got the best
nutrition.
props in the world right there, right? Oh God.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you got me thinking. I'm gonna write. No, I'm gonna write a sitcom, The Evidence Room. But
It's brilliant.
it was really cool to just. And they saw me, over time. I think when I left, I was about 200 pounds, and then when I, officially started the carnivore way, and another 25 came off. Now I have hair. I was a bald cop then. I didn't have a beard unless they let us grow it for a month. You had to pay it, for donation, October or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And now I walk by guys. I go back home now and I'll walk by them. They don't even know it's me, man. They just don't even know unless I'm wearing something that's like KetoFiveO or police related. They don't even. And
Like, dude, I thought you retired. Like, how long you been undercover? What's going on?
it's crazy, man. I don't even like going back. Honestly, we're trying not to. We're trying to homestead now, find a little land, do
Nice,
our own
nice.
little farm in, and build an army to fight the government.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we all are, man. Like, what you talked about, the RV and being around and taking the family around and doing this homestead trek. Like, what started the cops and campers? How did that come about?
Well, I was never a camper. Never did that in my life. My mom's out there solving homicide. There wasn't a lot of time for camping, right? The only camping she saw was dead bodies in the Everglades, right? So we ended up never doing it.
Oof.
And my wife was watching the tiny house shows. I think we had just moved. She's managing two kids and just cleaning up all the time. She was thinking how nice it would be to, you know, downsize. So we're
Yep.
watching these, treehouse shows. Let's put a storage tank, a storage thing in the woods and carve into it, all this craziness. And she was like, well, maybe we should get a camper and travel around. You could retire early and we don't have to pay the mortgage down here. And I was like, wow, that's such a weird concept. Retire early. I'd be 50. And I was like, retiring at 50? Yeah. But then how am I going to afford things? I was worried, because, you get used to the paycheck and the lifestyle. And
Sure.
so that summer, we ended up, that's when I found my brother Dave, my older brother that my dad had, he had knocked up a woman back in 1968 and she put the kid up for adoption. He never knew about it. So we had found this out in 2019 and he'd been RVing for 10 years. He'd already knew everything. So I ended
Yeah.
up camping with him. We rented an RV. I think it was in St. Augustine and it was right there on the beach. And I walked outside and it just hit me like, wow, if we did this, I could definitely roam around. Scared out of my mind about towing. I never towed a house behind me, and never had the wife next to you, making sure
Right.
you didn't make
Right,
any
right, right.
mistakes with the house either. But we ended up deciding, all right, let's retire in that October 2019. We had our big war room of do we get an RV like a Class A that we drive and then tow a car, or do we have a truck and then tow, bumper pull and
Yeah.
we didn't really know because we had two young boys at the time at 8 and 4, but they're little at that point. We figured we can make room for them. And we hit the road. We ended up getting an ATC, aluminum toy company, and we got a toy hauler, which the back opens up. So we get a little extra room. Right now, it's only Legos, Army Men, and, like BB guns. There's no real toys yet, but one day maybe. And we started traveling. And then COVID hit, like I was saying, and we were able to bounce around the South. And then in 2021, we hit the road again. We wanted to see Niagara Falls. Hey, got to see
Cool.
Niagara Falls. We went all the way up there. And then we ended up, I don't know if you're familiar with a camping club called Thousand Trails. Well, you pay like a yearly or monthly fee, and then you can stay at their campgrounds. Well, we ended up
Nice.
picking one in New York because my wife's got some family that never saw us camping. Oh, let's go see their trailer. It'll be fun.
Cool.
And we pull into this campground and hook up, and I put my flag out. And usually that's how people walk up. I meet a lot of retired veterans, whether it's police, military, fire, nurses, teachers, they see the flag as a conversation point, and then we talk metabolic health. It was great. All the
Nice.
campgrounds,
Nice.
who's the cop? You're too young, kid, or you don't even look like a cop. And I'm like, I used to be. And that just opens it up. You start talking,
Yeah.
like you're saying. Lost weight. Most of the people I meet are already pre diabetic, if not diabetic. They're already on medication. Most of them are
Sure.
retired. You do meet homeschool families that are traveling around also. That's always also a cool vibe. But at this campground in New York, one of the workers came up in his golf cart and told me to take down my thin blue line flag.
Ah.
And I was like, what? I thought he was messing with me. Like another veteran. No, dude, you got to
Yeah.
take that down, put a fireman flag up or something like
Right,
that,
right.
And he wasn't kidding,
It's
man. He
not the
was
right
serious.
dimensions. It's out of regs.
Yeah.
It's out of regs.
Well, like my firemen always say, you know why God made firemen? So policemen have heroes. That's what he says, right? I'm always like, get out of here. So I thought it was going to be one of those jokes. But he
Sure.
was serious. So I ended up filming him, which is weird to be on the filming side because I've been getting filmed.
Oh
And I
boy.
asked him again, and he told me again that you got to take your thin blue line flag. He even said it like thin blue line flag. I could feel it, right? Or at least my
Oh
brain told
no.
me I could feel it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then I went straight to red. I said some stuff like sending a piece of shit over your blah blah blah, and then the video cut off. And I put it out there, and I reached out to a couple of my cop buddies that done some internet stuff from my previous shooting. They did an article on it. Then it took off. Hudson Valley News came out, Channel 12, Blaze Gomez tonight, she did a story on it. Then a radio station did a story on it. I was like, wow, this is crazy, all from this flag.
Yeah.
Because I never left. I stayed. I ended up just moving because it was in the ground, and I read some of the bylaws about their property owning the land versus your vehicle. So I moved it into the truck so I could sleep on it. I didn't want to get locked up in New York as a retired cop not with
Or
my
anything.
kids. I
Yeah.
didn't want to traumatize them. So I ended up staying there 8 days. All these different cops are stopping by going, this is BS, blah, 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 And I was like, we're going to make some of it, right? And then I got suspended from Thousand Trails. The camping club suspended me for 2 months. I put that out there on social media, and then all these cops started canceling their memberships all over Thousand
Oh
Trails.
boy.
We
Oh
want
boy.
an answer, Thousand Trails. They support the blue line and all this stuff because their policies were vague. They had
Sure.
decorative flags, they had foreign flags, they had Canadian flags at the campground we were at.
Got it.
So we left, go back to Niagara Falls to finish our journey, and they have a rally for me, like the Hudson Valley Conservative Group from Facebook ends up having a rally. They got all these trucks coming, so I drive back for my own rally because I never had a rally before. Like, this would be cool. And they had like 50 trucks lined up at this tractor store, and they all got thin blue line flags, American flags up. And then we're going back to the campground because apparently there's guys in the campground. We're all going to throw our flags up at the same time, like some
Yeah.
Valhalla stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is going to be awesome. So I
That's awesome.
recorded a bunch of information or video. And as we're pulling in to the campground, New York State police come out, all masked up. They stop us. They send us away. They can't have any
Mm.
issues.
Mm.
And I understood it. They didn't want any like confrontations. The last thing
Sure.
they need
Sure.
is a shootout with cops or some shit.
Right.
And
Right.
so I remember we went to some parking lot and we were in the back of, I'm talking, thanking people for all this, and I got in the back of a truck and I had the idea because I had done something in 2018. I forgot to tell you this part of my therapy was they brought 8 of us, me and a bunch of guys called Cops in Cabins. We went to the Blue Ridge Mountains and we spent 4 days all together, and most of us didn't know each other. And one guy filmed it, and he was a film guy. He actually did the documentary Cops in Campers as well as the Cops in Cabins. But at that
Cool.
time, I didn't know him. So he filmed it, and it was very therapeutic. We all went through similar stories. They'd had questions of the day.
Yeah.
What was your worst day in police work, or who was your biggest asshole boss, or something like that. And you're like, oh, we all got one, right? And it
Yeah.
was just great. So I remember thinking how therapeutic that was, and that all this traveling that we do, I loved meeting these people. I'm like, we should do something called Cops and Campers. And I said that in the back of the truck. And me and one of my buddies had kind of thought about this concept before, but now it's like, now we're going to do it. So we got the logo out there, and then we went ahead and just started, trying to sell T-shirts, start a group page, start an internet, or I'm sorry, regular website, not knowing what to do. And then some people smarter than me said, dude, you should go nonprofit, bro, because you got something here. When you're bringing in the metabolic health side of it, into
Yep.
these outdoor therapy, you should go nonprofit. So we finally went nonprofit last November. So now I'm managing that, trying to help these fools get off the foolish food out there. But it's picking up. I've had 3 events in New York, 2 in Georgia. I want to run one before Hack Your Health in Tampa, like maybe that week
Nice.
before, and have it carry over to Hack Your Health so I can have guys, maybe just whether it's training units, bosses, other cops that can at least find the time and the budget to get over to Hack Your Health. Because once you're there, dude, you're going to find out so much information at any of these events that are, trying to help you with metabolic disease that they're going to be hook, line, and sinker. They're going to be in. I just got to get them there. So that's the plan with that. In the New York event, I got Dr. Kiltz coming out.
Nice.
He's going to come talk to the troops. I got Kevin Donaldson, who just wrote a book called Man, You're Crazy. It's about PTSD as a cop and what he went through with another guy named Christopher Anderson. And it's a fantastic book. He's going to come talk to us. He actually needs the camp. He's bringing his family. We got the National Guard coming out with an obstacle course, one of those inflatable
Oh,
obstacle
beautiful.
courses. We got music Saturday night. We got yoga rescue coming out, the yoga stretches in the morning, because we need to get out there and stretch, guys. I mean, come on, most of us can't even tie our
Oh yeah.
shoes without sitting down, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
just stuff like that. I got RV Carnivore coming out. Hopefully he'll be slinging some beef sticks or something around, and
Nice.
Eventually I want to get metabolic testing there. I want to get like somebody's crew there that at least let's do some glucose testing. We can get some of these groups that we know and let them just sign up, because I think a lot of them like their doctors and the way they're going because it's all covered by insurance and they've been with
Of
the same
course.
doctors for years. So they need somebody like the health advocate to come in there and say, hey, bro, there's another way to look at this. And this is a real doctor on the other end of this. This isn't just me and my buddies sitting together trying to sell you supplements or trying to sell you an energy drink. It's real science behind why you're feeling like this. Why are you on this medication? Let's get you off of this. And the best
Yeah.
part is it's so easy to eat this way.
Yeah.
I know that they say it's expensive, but man, just to eat a steak, eggs, bacon, you don't have to think about it. It takes so much off your plate for the day, right? And you can move on your life and do so much other productive things.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're going to start a nonprofit and your own other side business, but it's amazing what'll happen, man. And I
Yeah.
think overall, if once they get a taste of it, I just had one of my cop buddies, and he doesn't want to go public with it, but he's lost 50 pounds. He hasn't seen 210
Amazing.
pounds, I think, ever. So
Amazing.
it's, and that's why I keep going. And now he just got an RV. So I'm like, oh, you're one step away from joining the board now of cops and campers. You get near us, man, you're going to find yourself with a job.
Oh God.
But yeah, it's been great, man. That's how it all started. Getting metabolic health involved. I know what it did for me and my mind, and that helped me, like we were saying, dance with it because it's not
Yeah.
going away. And
Yeah.
I don't want to feed stuff that's just going to cloud my judgment and interfere with the processing. And we all know the
Yep.
direct link between our brain and our gut, man. We got to take care of the gut and watch the brain will follow. It's amazing. You know.
It's beautiful. It's so true. All right. I am a soon to be retiring Marine, or I'm a soon to be retiring police officer, or a first responder, or a firefighter, or I've just done my 4 years. I'm finishing my enlistment. I've had a pretty good tour of duty. I've seen some action. I've got some issues that I'm dealing with. I've got a family. What do you tell me in like a couple of bullet points? Obviously, each of us is different. Our needs are different. But what can you give me as like, hey man, or hey friend, hey brother, hey sister, like this worked for me really well. Maybe it'll work for you too.
I would say one of the biggest steps for me in my journey was meal prepping and planning. I would make a big dish of zucchini lasagna, have that for the week, and then like I said, I didn't have to think about it. Seeking the therapy, obviously, was something. Telling my wife and telling coworkers. I had to go into one of my boss's office and tell him the way I was feeling, break down before they sent me to employee assistance program, EAP.
Mm,
And it's kind of like the first step into getting help, but it's terrifying for guys because they don't want to tell them themselves because it's not accepted, right?
mm,
So I mean, things are changing now. After I got shot, I saw the psychologist one time with Chris, who was with me on my shooting.
mm.
2 days later, you guys all right? Yeah, you all right? Yeah, all right.
All right.
There you go.
On to the
Well, if you
next
need
one.
us, call us. I'm like, okay. It was like they should have had us a week later sit down in a circle and
Yeah.
say, all right,
And again,
that's
and
okay.
again, and
And
again.
again, like I was saying about getting into a group, one of the things our department did for a while and then phased out with different change in leadership was they would bring certain group of us together that were involved in something. One cop was fighting for his life with his gun, and another cop had to come over and kill that guy. They
Mm,
both have a perspective of that story that's different, right? How do you
sure.
feel almost losing your gun in a fight? There's a whole psych thing that goes on with that, and
Right,
then you
right.
have we lost a canine, on a shooting in a pharmaceutical store and on a burglary. And we've had another cop got shot pulling his taser, chasing the guy, and the guy turned around with a gun. You
Yeah.
know, he had trauma and stuff he had to deal with. He got divorced. You start hearing these stories, and then you're telling the young recruits or the young officers, hey, man, this is what can happen. And it it's okay. It's okay
Yeah.
to feel the way you're feeling. And I think that was helping. And then, you change, guys retire, they stop doing that. And it was helping me as much as it was helping them. I didn't realize it. I thought I was just sharing my story, but over
Sure.
time, and that's why, I try to reach out and do as many of these shows and talk to people, because like you said, every bit of it's therapy, and I'm able to purge some of it, whether it's through tears or anger or just by words. Eventually I feel better about it.
Yeah.
And I'm still dancing. It's a little more reggae
Still
dancing.
dancing.
I got to tell you about my other life eventually called Rasta 50, but
Oh, beautiful. That's where the hair comes from. I got it. I got
yeah.
it. Okay. Yeah, man. When I first started going through recovery, somebody told me years, first couple of weeks going there, like, 'cause I was like, I don't really want to go. I don't need it. Me. It was very ego and self-centered, my thinking. And this person was like, you ever think maybe it's not about for you, and that maybe your story or your presence or something you share or just your being there might support someone else in a time of need? Maybe just your appearance or your aura is going to give some support to somebody, because they go, man, that guy looks like he's got it figured out, or like, I don't know what he's doing, but I want to be his friend, or like, I'm glad she's here, like she feels strong. I didn't think of it that way. I was just like, what am I getting out of this shit? I don't want to go. Okay, it's court mandated. Ugh, lame. Like, I don't care to be here. It's hospitably mandated. I don't care to be here. I'm just here because I have to be here. Sign my sheet so I can friggin' leave. But it's amazing what other people can get out of you. Even though you're saying like, yeah, it's the purge and it's happening and it's the excision that's taking place and I'm passing this experience out. But it's amazing what other people can get out of us, what they can benefit from us. And that's something that it took me a while to really understand. And now I see both sides of that, to when people respond and say thank you and they're appreciating, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm glad you guys benefited from it, but this is all for me. Like, the fact that takes place, indirect benefit. But then I flip it around and go, you know what? I don't do it for me. I'm doing it for the greater good, for the benevolent fun, for the selflessness of it. And then the indirect benefit is I'm actually purging. I'm actually releasing what I need to be, even though I'm feeling like I'm benefiting from it. So it's just like a little mind trick that's nothing more than that, but that's my version of dancing, I guess.
Yeah, we
You know?
underestimate human connection, and
Mm,
then when we start connecting, whether it's at a campfire, and you may just be telling funny stories, but we all know that maybe later on a couple of guys hook up, start fishing together. They didn't know about each other,
yeah.
and then
Yeah.
stuff will come out. Maybe that's his path or her path.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the wives or the other halves getting together, talking about
Yeah.
their life. One of the things one of my old bosses told me is like, make sure you understand that your significant other's life is just as important like her day. So
Mm,
because she had an issue with her boss at work, and you may have just seen a rollover with a dead body, and you're like, oh, it doesn't even compare to what I've seen today. Well, in her world, whatever issue she had is a big deal. And you have to
mm,
understand that. Even deep down, you're like, I don't care because Sally's whatever saying this shit, whatever, who gives a shit, right? But deep down there, you got to open up.
yep.
And if she's opening up to you or he's opening up to you, that's a big deal. That's something that's on, and you got to be there for them as well. It's not always about you yapping, and you got to feel them. And I was able to have a wife that definitely let me know how she was feeling. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Right, honey? She's in the other room. Listen to everything I'm saying.
It's like what you're saying about the two officers, experiencing this situation differently. One who almost has his gun taken away from him, and the other who has to protect his fellow officer and kill the person trying to take the gun away. Two totally different experiences in that scenario. One has got the guilt or shame of almost losing the gun, and then asking or almost having to have the other person step in, risk their life to prevent this from happening. And then what if they both got killed, or what if he got killed and I survived? Oh my God. Like, and then the other person that has to step in, be the supporter, be, there for a fellow, and then have to, use lethal force to mitigate the situation and live with that. Two totally different sides of that story, but nonetheless, both equally important.
Yeah, I
So I
had to
like what
come
you're
to
talking about.
grips with taking a life too. I didn't think it would bother me, but it kind of did on some levels. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Don't get me wrong, but when you get into this job, it's not like I want to shoot a bank robber, even though
Yeah.
I mean that's what I played as a kid. Cops and robbers all the time, right? But yeah, it was like wow, because you kind of get a. I was telling somebody, or I've said it several times, how primal that emotion is at that point. And in my shooting, I got real close, and I remember those last few rounds I put into his body, and that's primal, and people don't understand that when you get to that point, what a bizarre world to get to, because it's almost like medieval, on some level, because you go where it's, oh man, I was so mad, dude, at that point, what I would have done back in the old days, but it was just the circumstances and, of course, everything going on, but to be that close in it, and you do relive it all the time, and then you're like, wow, does this guy have a family? What's my, you just question a lot of things, and there's carryover, with it. And yeah, it's not something I'm proud of. I don't go around, I don't like have a notch on my truck, like I took down
Yeah.
anything, but I got the scar on my foot and my leg, and the battle wounds from it. I mean, it's crazy. Have some dude shooting at you, dude. That was, I just had my anniversary Wednesday, right? And it was 12 years since the shooting. And, I was doing some of the 911 stuff I have, and I was looking through listening to this stuff. And it's just like, wow, dude. When I first saw the car, man, and we stopped, we're just sitting there before we even got in the car chase. He's just waiting for me, dude, to walk up. And I'm like, I'm not walking up. I'm not walking up right now, dude. I'm waiting for backup. But I was thinking if I was younger, car wasn't an exact match, it wasn't
Yeah.
100% our bad guy. That stuff creeps in, man. What if I did walk up,
Yeah.
it shot me right in the face, and the crash happened and then everything was freaking, I was not in a good spot because I didn't expect him to crash and be right
Right.
there, and it was like, whoa, now shots are, I'm dancing. And that's when I started dancing, when you start shooting at the ground.
Right.
And,
Right.
but yeah, it was crazy, man. And, I don't know if a lot of your listeners understand sometimes, but I wasn't counting rounds and I was so focused that something in my subconscious is like, dude, you're about to run out. And I looked at my slide and when I went back, transitioned right back in it, dude. And that was just training and, doing it repetitive over my career. But
Yeah.
dude, I didn't hear anything. The tunnel vision, everything they say was right on. And then once the lights come on or the sound comes back, because I had a SWAT guy with a rifle go, hey, dude, we got this. Woo! All the sirens are going, the smoke. It was crazy, man.
You
You
can
know,
hear
and
the
then
glass on the ground,
oh
stepping
yeah,
on
and
the
then
broken
I was
glass.
limping. I was like, oh, and I looked down. And that's where I saw the whole the shoe. And the running joke was I shot myself. Like, no, I didn't shoot
Right.
myself in the foot, dude. It's on the other side. But we can't leave each other alone. So,
No, of course, of course.
but yeah, it's like you said, man. It was a terrible situation. And it's turned out to be, look what I've done with it. I'm reaching out. So many guys reach out to me that've been through some shit, whether they, were in a battle that they lost, but they say, their lives were saved. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys hurting out there. Our suicide rate is out of control. And what they're prescribing these guys and what they're feeding these guys, whether they're veterans or the military or any first responders, they're feeding them crap. It's leading to all this mental disease,
Yeah.
and stuff that's going on with the suicide. So, I mean, it's, I'm hoping to make a difference as much as I can. I mean, we can only save who we can save and be there for the guys that reach out to us, I mean,
Yeah. I got something I got to show.
you're not going to coin me, are you?
Close. 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 Almost. I'm gonna flatter you and talk about Eric being a real G because when we met, he gave me a
There it
coin,
is.
one of his KetoFiveO
Cops and campers coin.
cops and campers coins. So, like for anybody that doesn't know, the gifting of coins, or I should say, the paying tribute with coins to someone, is a big deal. Militarily, within the departments, fire, police, EMS, coins, challenge coins. It's like a passing of I don't know, I don't even know what to call it, gratitude, appreciation, respect, mutual respect, or from a superior to a subordinate, from a senior to a junior, things like to where you just kind of continuing the legacy, like passing a baton in certain ways. And Eric gave me one of these when we met, and I can tell you, I've got a good collection of challenge coins. I can remember where I got every single one of them, who I was with, who gave it to me, why, and this is a good one. So I just want to say thanks, and that
Awesome, man.
it speaks volumes, because that's the truth, man. And to hear you talk about what you've been through, what you're still going through, what you deal with day to day as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a parent, as an entrepreneur now, as a 501c yourself now.
Trying.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's, when someone wants to not be depressed, when someone wants to not be scared, when someone wants to not have to deal with the anguish or the torment of a past experience, if you're not willing to remove things that are going to contribute to that further happening, you're not helping yourself. It's like someone saying, hey, I need to put this fire out. My house is on fire. Help me put out the fire. And you're throwing gasoline on it. It's like, we should start probably by not pouring the gas, and then we can look for a water source or something to exhaust the oxygen. But not pouring the gas would be a great place to start. So just like you said about our brothers and sisters that are either taking the RX, that are eating what they're eating, they're drinking what they're drinking, like, you will never get better if you keep pouring gas on that fire. You're never going to be able to extinguish the demon. You're never going to be able, and you might never extinguish the demon, but you might never be able to dance with it eloquently. And it'll always be stepping on your toes or cutting you off too soon, or it will be leading, rather, I should say, than you leading it. And that's totally, I think, within our control.
Yeah. I mean, it helps out there, and it starts also, like you were saying, with your diet. I mean, it's so important to get that straight. And what a lot of guys I try to help, I have them fasting on duty. I'm like, dude, just go your whole shift. Just drink bone broth coffee or something. If you need a little heavy cream in there, go ahead.
Sharp, baby.
And then afterwards, go meet at the diner and get that omelet, bacon, and eggs. And, just freaking go to town and then go sleep. Hit the gym before your shift. Or actually, our department, we could work out during our shift. So you can even throw in a workout. I mean, it's possible. And if your department doesn't have you able to work out on duty, then you need to get with your union, because it's already spreading across the country, us getting workout time while we're working. Not just off duty, but while you're working, because it's part of our health. I mean, it should be just like going to the range, qualifying. You should also have to do certain things to keep yourself up, and I hate seeing these cops that are getting fat for no reason because of their cortisol levels. They think they're doing the right, and they're still gaining weight just because of stress. They can't even stop it. So put the fire out.
So to all of to the LE community out there, take heed to what Eric's saying about being able to do things intra duty, while on tower, while on call, and things you're able to get done. But you want mental clarity, sharpness, clear between the ears, and be able to have an acute sense of awareness about you. No brain fog, no fatigue, mentally, physically, or otherwise. Be fasted, pound your coffee. Do things that are going to keep you sharp, keep you safe, and keep you vigilant. Where can we find you, Eric, online, and learn more about cops and campers and anything else you're involved in?
Everything's pretty much the KetoFiveO.com, KetoFiveO, and all the social media platforms. Same with Cops and Campers. That's same on all the social media platforms. And we're also putting a program together to come to your departments to teach about, metabolic disease and some of the therapies we offer.
Beautiful.
So I'm working with a guy named John Kelly. He's already a pioneer in this world. He's going to be my FTO. I'm going to learn from him how to do some stuff. And maybe one day I'll be up there with you at like Hack Your Health, and we'll be talking about some shit, and helping people,
I'll
man.
see you there next year.
All right, man.
Well, awesome. Really appreciate it, Eric. I'll have all of Eric's contact information and what he's been up to and things he's got coming out, as well as some glimpses of his bank robbery from the past, some clips on that for you guys to be able to watch and see in the show notes. But other than that, really appreciate the time today. Eric Reynolds, KetoFiveO. For another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I am Jake Thomas. We really appreciate you guys tuning in today. And thank you, Eric, for the time and really for the vulnerability, man. Really, really, really appreciate it. I know it takes a lot to stand in the in the gauntlet and be in that hot seat, but we really appreciate your candor in doing so.
Thank you, man.
See you, everybody.